English learners. Welcome back to another great podcast here at English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, as always.
Food.
Food. We're going to be at a restaurant.
And, one of the most difficult or embarrassing things to deal with at a restaurant is what to say when you don't like the food or when it's bad quality food.
Right. So maybe we have to complain about the food or maybe even the service, right?
That's right. And in this lesson, we're going to be learning some really wonderful words and phrases that you can use when you need to complain about the food or the service in a restaurant.
Okay, so before we listen to what happens in this restaurant with this food, let's take a look very quickly at vocabulary preview.
Vocabulary preview.
Okay, we're only going to do one word today, and this you'll hear in the dialogue. An establishment.
Establishment.
This kind of establishment.
Okay, so when I say an establishment, that's a noun. What is an establishment?
It's basically a fancy word for a business or a restaurant in this case.
In this case, it's a restaurant.
Yep.
But in general, you can say it's a business. So you have a very fine establishment.
That's right. So an establishment, a type of business, a place of business, really.
Very good. All right, so now it's time for us to listen to our dialogue. We're going to find out what's going on here. Apparently, there is a very angry customer, and we're going to find out why.
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes, and no one has offered me a glass of water, brought any bread to the table, and our appetizers haven't been served yet. In this kind of establishment, I'd expect much better service.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll check on your order right away.
Relax, honey. The place is busy tonight, and I've heard the food is amazing. Anyway.
Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and a mushroom soup for you.
Waiter! I ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. The soup is obviously too runny, and it's over-seasoned. It's completely inedible.
Okay, I do apologize for that. Can I bring you another soup, or would you like to order something else?
Take this foie gras back as well. It's rubbery and completely overcooked. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?
Right away, sir.
Honey, come on. The foie gras was fine. Why are you making such a big deal? Are you trying to get our meal comped again?
What do you mean? We are paying for this, and I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks. I expect value for money.
Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you.
Yes, fine.
Honey, are you all right?
Well, I guess that's one lesson, hey? If you're in a restaurant, don't be too rude to the waiter. You never know what's going to happen.
The waiter and the cook, right?
Yeah, you don't want to offend that kitchen staff.
All right, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but now I think we had some really interesting vocabulary of how to describe food that is not well prepared, and we can take a look at that now in Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so the guy in this dialogue, he ordered a mushroom soup, and he complained that the mushroom soup was too runny.
Okay, the soup is too runny.
Runny.
So he wanted a cream of mushrooms, so it should be a little bit thicker.
Yep.
But in this case, it was runny.
So when something is runny, it's too liquid.
Too liquid. And I think we can relate it to a runny nose, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when liquid is coming out of your nose, a runny nose, in this case, the soup is runny.
All right. And another thing that he was complaining about, the food was over-seasoned.
Over-seasoned.
The food is over-seasoned.
Okay, so if the food is over-seasoned,
it's too salty.
So it's another way of saying it's too salty.
Yeah, it's kind of a fancy a cooking term.
Now, can I say if there's too much pepper in the food, can I say it's over-seasoned?
Well, technically, no. When a cook says something is over-seasoned, he's talking salt only.
Only salt, okay. So the cream of mushroom is very runny, it's over-seasoned, and he said it's completely inedible.
Inedible.
It's inedible.
Inedible.
Now, this word edible.
You can eat it.
You can eat it. So we add this prefix inedible
You cannot eat it.
This is not possible.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that physically you can't eat it. It just means it's pretty disgusting.
Okay. This food is inedible. And then he started to complain about the other dish. And he said that it's rubbery.
Rubbery.
The foie gras was rubbery.
All right. So I think we noticed the word rubber. So obviously, if a food is rubbery, it tastes, or it's too chewy. It's like chewing on the bottom of your shoe, right?
Okay, so it's too hard to chew or to swallow.
Exactly.
All right. Apparently, the food was rubbery because it's completely overcooked.
Overcooked.
All right, we have overcooked.
So when something is overcooked, I mean, it's easy to understand that it's cooked too much.
But it doesn't mean that it's burnt, right?
No, so maybe you've ordered your steak to be rare, but it comes to you well done. So it's not burnt, but it's cooked too much.
So also, I guess we can say like chicken. Sometimes if you overcook chicken, it comes out too dry.
Yep.
All right, so to overcook something.
And finally, he was complaining about the size of the dish, and he said, this is a sliver of duck liver.
Okay, a sliver.
A sliver.
All right. Now, this word sliver is like a slice, right?
A very small, tiny little slice.
Okay, so we can say, okay, I just want a sliver of bacon for breakfast.
All right, why don't we hear a few more examples of how we can use sliver?
Example 1.
No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream.
Example 2.
I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver?
Example 3.
You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here.
And those are all the words we had for language takeaway. Now you have, so we've given you different adjectives of describing food that is not well prepared. So now let's move on to some other phrases that the customer used to complain in Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so before we get to the customer complaining language, I want to look at a phrase that the waiter used to apologize. He said, I do apologize.
I do apologize.
I do apologize.
Now, why is this phrase so interesting?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand the meaning, but I want to look at why he added this verb do. Well, he added the verb do to this phrase to make it seem a little bit stronger, to give a little more power to his apology.
Right, so if you have an affirmative phrase like, I apologize.
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah.
But if you want to give it a little bit more emphasis, you can say, I do apologize.
Why don't we give an example? So I might say this. Marco, I didn't know we had a party tonight.
And I might say, what? I did tell you about it last week.
Right, so you're just giving a little bit more power to the statement that you told me.
So this do, did, does becomes an auxiliary to make it more powerful, to give it more emphasis.
Yeah, exactly. So a neat little phrase, something you can use if you want to make your apologies sound maybe a little bit stronger.
All right. Now moving on to the next phrase. He was complaining about the food and it was terrible, and he said, I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks.
Okay, let's break this one down into two sections. We'll start with shelling out.
All right, so to shell out.
So when you shell out, you pay for something.
All right, but this gives you the sensation that you don't really want to pay.
You're a bit unhappy about it.
Right, so you want to shell out your money.
Why don't we listen to some examples to show us how we can use this phrase to shell out?
Example 1.
Great. It's my girlfriend's birthday this month, so I'm going to have to shell out for a present.
Example 2.
I really want those shoes, but I can't really afford to shell out $400.
Example 3.
I can't believe it. Ella shelled out the $800 for the tickets. I thought I would have to pay.
All right, so now that we understand shell out, let's move on to the second part of that sentence. My hard-earned bucks.
Hard-earned bucks.
My hard-earned bucks.
Okay, so bucks are dollars, right?
Dollars. Only dollars, right?
Yeah, not pounds, not euros. But his hard-earned bucks is Money he had to work really hard for.
So I can also say my hard-earned money, right? Or my hard-earned cash.
Exactly.
Very good. So you worked hard to get it.
All right, so three great phrases that can be used when you're complaining in a restaurant. And why don't we hear them one last time in context by listening to the dialogue?
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes, and no one has offered me a glass of water, brought any bread to the table, and our appetizers haven't been served yet. You know, in this kind of establishment, I'd expect much better service.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll check on your order right away.
Relax, honey. The place is busy tonight, and I've heard the food is amazing. Anyway,
Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and a mushroom soup for you.
Waiter! I ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. The soup is obviously too runny, and it's over-seasoned. It's completely inedible.
Okay, I do apologize for that. Can I bring you another soup, or would you like to order something else?
Take this foie gras back as well. It's rubbery and completely overcooked. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?
Right away, sir.
honey, come on. The foie gras was fine. Why are you making such a big deal? Are you trying to get our meal comped again?
What do you mean? We are paying for this, and I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks. I expect value for money.
Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you.
Yes, fine.
Honey, are you all right?
So complaining at a restaurant and actually sending food back is not uncommon in the US.
Yeah, of course. If the food's bad, of course you're going to send it back.
But maybe in other cultures, I think people would be a little bit more reluctant to do something like this.
Yeah. But hey, you know what's an interesting thing about the way Americans eat in restaurants is sometimes at the end of the meal, if they haven't finished everything, they might ask for a doggy bag.
A doggy bag, yeah.
Yeah. So what is that, a doggy bag?
Well, usually if you order a big meal or, half your steak is left over on your plate, you would ask for a doggy bag and they would bring you a little box or a bag and you would take it to supposedly give it to your dog.
Right. So it's sort of like you tell the waiter, the steak was so good, I couldn't finish it. Can I take some home to my dog?
Right. So you would just ask, waiter, can I have a doggy bag?
Right. But it's sort of like code for, I'm going to eat this tomorrow for lunch.
Exactly. Because people wouldn't really give it to their dogs.
Yeah.
I mean,
that steak wrapped up in a fancy sort of foil swan is going to be pretty delicious the next day.
right. Yeah, it's actually very common in the US, but in other countries, people will leave
Yeah.
entire plates of food on the
It'd be
table.
totally impolite to ask the waiter to pack up the food for you.
Exactly.
Yep.
So a little bit of cultural differences, but we want to know what you think and how things are done maybe in your country with complaining or sending food back or even this whole doggy bag situation.
That's right. Why don't you visit our website, englishpod.com, and tell us about it.
All right. We'll be there to answer any questions or comments, but we got to go now. So until then,
Goodbye.
bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
A bad second taste. A bad aftertaste. A strong, unpleasant taste that is opposite of sweet. Bitter. A strong, unpleasant smell. Rank. A rotten taste or smell. Rancid. Not appealing, not attractive or tasty. Unappealing. Little dish people have before meal. Appetizer. Place of business like a restaurant or hotel. Establishment. Work done by someone to serve customers. Service. The list containing your choices of dishes. Order. A food made from the livers of geese. Foie gras. More liquid than expected. Runny. Too salty. Overseasoned. Cannot be eaten. Inedible. Difficult to chew. Rubbery. Be cooked over time. Overcooked. The amount of food that is served to a person. Portion size. A small thin piece. Sliver. Get very upset about something small. Make a big deal. Be given to customers for free. Comp. To spend money. Shell out. Money you work hard for. Hard earned. Let's try that faster. Work done by someone to serve customers. Service. Place of business like a restaurant or hotel. Establishment. More liquid than expected. Runny. The amount of food that is served to a person. Portion size. A strong, unpleasant smell. Rank. Difficult to chew. Rubbery. Too salty. Overseasoned. Not appealing, not attractive or tasty. Unappealing. Be given to customers for free. Comp. Get very upset about something small. Make a big deal. A strong, unpleasant taste that is opposite of sweet. Bitter. A bad second taste. A bad aftertaste. A food made from the livers of geese. Foie gras. The list containing your choices of dishes. Order. Be cooked over time. Overcooked. Cannot be eaten. Inedible. To spend money. Shell out. Money you work hard for. Hard earned. A rotten taste or smell. Rancid. A small thin piece. Sliver. Little dish people have before meal. Appetizer. Now say the word and hear it in a sentence. Inedible. This fish tastes terrible. It's completely inedible. Inedible. If you leave meat out of the refrigerator for too long, it will be inedible. Inedible. Are you sure you can eat that? Aren't the flower decorations on cakes inedible? Rubbery. This steak is so rubbery I can barely chew it. Rubbery. If the meat is so rubbery, why don't you send it back? Rubbery. The foie gras is so rubbery, I bet it would bounce on the floor if I dropped it. Sliver. No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream. Sliver. I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver? Sliver. You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here. Hard-earned. Doesn't it feel good when you use your hard-earned bucks to buy something you've always wanted? Hard-earned. I refuse to spend my hard-earned bucks on someone who won't appreciate it. Hard-earned. Richard is such a great guy. Every year he would donate his hard-earned bucks to a different charity. I can't believe I got a parking ticket yesterday. Now I'm going to have to shell out 75 bucks. It's me and my girlfriend's 5-year anniversary on Saturday, so I'm going to shell out for a nice dinner and a pair of nice earrings. Shell out. Money you work hard for. Hard-earned. A rotten taste or smell. Rancid. A small thin piece. Sliver. Little dish people have before meal. Appetizer. Now say the word and hear it in a sentence. Inedible. This fish tastes terrible. It's completely inedible. Inedible. If you leave meat out of the refrigerator for too long, it will be inedible. Inedible. Are you sure you can eat that? Aren't the flower decorations on cakes inedible? Rubbery. This steak is so rubbery I can barely chew it. Rubbery. If the meat is so rubbery, why don't you send it back? Rubbery. The foie gras is so rubbery, I bet it would bounce on the floor if I dropped it. Sliver. No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream. Sliver. I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver? Sliver. You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here. Hard-earned. Doesn't it feel good when you use your hard-earned bucks to buy something you've always wanted? Hard-earned. I refuse to spend my hard-earned bucks on someone who won't appreciate it. Hard-earned. Richard is such a great guy. Every year he would donate his hard-earned bucks to a different charity. I can't believe I got a parking ticket yesterday. Now I'm going to have to shell out 75 bucks. It's me and my girlfriend's 5-year anniversary on Saturday, so I'm going to shell out for a nice dinner and a pair of nice earrings. Tommy loved to party. Last night he shelled out $300 buying people drinks.
Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
And my name is Catherine, and today we're talking about something very serious.
Very serious. Today we're talking about capital punishment.
So, if you've never heard that phrase before, you might have heard another name for this topic. It's called the death penalty.
Right. So, if you commit a crime, basically the judge says that you will have to be put to death for that crime.
Right, so many countries no longer have this law. The United States, you can see it in some places, some states, but not in others. So what we're talking about today is the debate between to have the death penalty and to not have it.
All right, so we're going to actually have a little debate in the end of if we agree that we should have the death penalty or not. But before that, why don't we listen to this dialogue for the first time?
That's all for today's class. We will continue our lecture on crime and punishment tomorrow.
Do you think we should be tougher on crime?
Well, it depends on what you mean.
For example, we could bring back the death penalty for murder, give longer prison sentences for lesser offenses, and lock up juvenile offenders.
Those sound like really draconian measures. Firstly, what do you do about miscarriages of justice if you've already put innocent people to death?
You'd only use capital punishment if you were absolutely sure that you convicted the right person.
But there have been many cases of wrongful conviction where people have been imprisoned for many years. The authorities were sure at the time, but later it was shown that the evidence was unreliable. In some cases, it had been fabricated by the police.
Well, no system of justice can be perfect, but surely there's a good case for longer prison sentences to deter serious crime.
I doubt whether they could act as an effective deterrent while the detection rate is so low. The best way to prevent crime is to convince people who commit it that they're going to be caught. It doesn't make sense to divert all your resources into the prison system.
But if you detect more crimes, you'll still need prisons. In my reckoning, if we could lock up more juvenile criminals, they'd learn that they can't get away with it. Soft sentences will merely encourage them to do it again.
Yes, but remember that prisons are often schools for criminals. To remove crime from society, you really have to tackle its causes.
Well, if I were president, I would impose tougher laws and punishment. I would have a peaceful society based on fear of punishment, not consciousness of doing the right thing.
You sound like a dictator.
Well, if it works, why not? All right, so Marco, there's a lot of really great legal terms here, legal and crime terms. And so let's look at a few of these in today's language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so let's take a look at the first one. They mentioned juvenile offenders.
All right, so let's look at these two words because, offender can be pretty general. It's someone who commits a crime.
Mm-hmm.
So an offender. But we're talking about a special kind of offender. Here we're talking about juvenile offenders.
So they're young offenders.
Right. And in America, legally, you're a juvenile offender if you're under the age of 18.
Okay, so if you commit a crime while you are a juvenile, you get judged differently, right? You don't get the same treatment as an adult.
Right. Usually the punishments are not as harsh because people like to think that younger people, younger children or teenagers, they don't really understand the law. They don't really understand crime or good and bad. So
All right.
we should be easier on them.
All right, very good. So we have juvenile offenders, and we also have wrongful conviction.
All right, this is an uh-oh moment for a judge because a wrongful conviction, well, conviction, first of all, is a decision. So this is a court's decision on whether or not a person is guilty.
So you convicted the person.
Right. Marco was convicted guilty of stealing my computer.
I was too. That happened.
Right. But it's a wrongful conviction if Marco didn't really steal a computer, but we decided that he did.
Okay. So it was a wrong decision.
Right. It was a bad decision in the sense that it's actually not what happened in reality.
A wrongful conviction. Very good. And actually related to a wrongful conviction, many times it happens because evidence is fabricated by the police.
All right. So this is a big no-no. This is something that really shouldn't happen, and it's against the law in many countries. So fabrication, or to fabricate, is to fake, to make something up. And so evidence that's fabricated is evidence that the police or other people create to try and make someone look guilty, but it's not actually evidence. It's not really...
it's not true.
It's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
And now moving on, they were talking about a deterrent for crime.
Okay, so to deter is a verb. To deter means to try and get someone to not do something. All right? So I'm going to try and deter my staff from taking early lunch breaks. So I'm going to punish someone as a deterrent.
As a deterrent. Okay, so you have the verb deter, and you have the noun, a deterrent.
Right. Yeah, and so oftentimes very strict laws are meant to be deterrents. They're meant to keep people from doing bad things, from breaking the law.
All right, so for example, capital punishment is one of those deterrents. If you kill somebody, then if you get caught, you are also going to be killed.
So that means I'm never going to kill anyone because I don't want the law to decide that I'm going to get killed.
Exactly. And our last word for today, they were talking about imposing tougher laws. I would impose tougher laws.
Okay, so to impose is a verb that means to put in place or to set up or enact. And so,
but by force, right? You don't really agree to do it.
Like the dictator imposes his will. All right, so he makes everyone do what he wants. But we can impose measures that do something. It's kind of like forcibly making people follow some kind of rule or follow a person.
Now, sometimes you would see that you have a company or you have people at your house and they're like, well, stay over for dinner. And they're like, oh, I wouldn't want to impose.
All right. So I wouldn't want to bother you, or I wouldn't want to create more work for you because, when you're making food, you have all these people. They don't want to impose on you.
All right. So that's another way of using this, impose on somebody. All right. So after all of these words that we've taken a look at, why don't we start now with Fluency Builder?
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so as you know, Fluency Builder is a place where we get to talk about some phrases and words that allow you to be more fluent in English. So these are sometimes idioms or sometimes phrases, words that go together commonly. And the first one is no exception. It's a miscarriage. So miscarriage of justice.
All right, a miscarriage of justice. Now we have different words here. The first one, miscarriage, it's usually related to a medical term.
Right, it's a pregnancy. Well, it's a pregnancy that has a sad result. It's a pregnancy where the woman's baby dies or the woman loses the baby. And a miscarriage of justice is a metaphor. It's a way to say that justice was not carried out. It means that, for example, with those wrongful convictions, the law failed
to accomplish its objective.
Yeah, to accomplish its objective and to be fair.
Okay, so a miscarriage of justice. Interesting. And moving on to our next phrase, they were talking and discussing this whole death penalty situation, and she mentioned, in my reckoning.
All right, so this is a great way to share your opinion or your idea with someone. You're saying pretty much, in my opinion, according to me, or, the way I'm thinking is this.
So I can also say I reckon, right?
Exactly. I reckon it's going to rain later. I think it's going to rain. So in my reckoning, in my opinion.
All right. I reckon. And to finish off Fluency Builder, they said that the person or the criminal couldn't get away with it.
All right, so this is another one of those phrases that each word maybe means something different. You can get somewhere, but put together, to get away with something means to do something bad or illegal or that's not okay without getting caught.
Or being punished.
So
you can say get away with murder.
He got away with murder. He did something that was really, really bad, but no one caught him.
And also it means the criminal got away, so they couldn't catch him.
Right, or I could always say to my brother, he would always lie to my parents and get away with it. So that he never got caught, he never got punished.
Okay, so he got away with his lie or got his way.
Right.
All right, so I think this is an interesting phrase. Why don't we listen to a couple of more examples?
Example 1.
Do you think we could get away with using the cheaper product?
Example 2.
Thieves got away with 2 Picassos, which were never found.
Example 3.
He almost got away with murder. Unfortunately for him, the police discovered his secret.
So we've taken a look at a lot of great phrases. Why don't we listen to our dialogue for the last time, and then we'll come back.
That's all for today's class. We will continue our lecture on crime and punishment tomorrow.
Do you think we should be tougher on crime?
Well, it depends on what you mean.
For example, we could bring back the death penalty for murder, give longer prison sentences for lesser offenses, and lock up juvenile offenders.
Those sound like really draconian measures. Firstly, what do you do about miscarriages of justice if you've already put innocent people to death?
You'd only use capital punishment if you were absolutely sure that you convicted the right person.
But there have been many cases of wrongful conviction where people have been imprisoned for many years. The authorities were sure at the time, but later it was shown that the evidence was unreliable. In some cases, it had been fabricated by the police.
Well, no system of justice can be perfect, but surely there's a good case for longer prison sentences to deter serious crime.
I doubt whether they could act as an effective deterrent while the detection rate is so low. The best way to prevent crime is to convince people who commit it that they're going to be caught. It doesn't make sense to divert all your resources into the prison system.
But if you detect more crimes, you'll still need prisons. In my reckoning, if we could lock up more juvenile criminals, they'd learn that they can't get away with it. Soft sentences will merely encourage them to do it again.
Yes, but remember that prisons are often schools for criminals. To remove crime from society, you really have to tackle its causes.
Well, if I were president, I would impose tougher laws and punishment. I would have a peaceful society based on fear of punishment, not consciousness of doing the right thing.
You sound like a dictator.
Well, if it works, why not?
All right, so now the big question, Catherine. Do you agree with the death penalty?
Oh, this is a big one, and I don't think we have enough time to go into it in much detail here, but I definitely think that is extreme, right? And so we have this phrase, draconian measures.
Right,
and I
they
think,
mentioned that in the dialogue.
Yeah, so draconian, something that's draconian is excessive or severe, you know? And I think that there are a lot of reasons not to have the death penalty, because the death penalty, well, you're pretty much saying, we as a society think that murder is wrong, but we're going to show you that you've done a wrong thing, like a bad thing that's against the law, by killing you. All right, and so I have to disagree with that on a philosophical level.
But what about practical?
Practically speaking, I think that there are a lot of problems with the prison system and the legal system in the United States, for example, because prisons are really crowded. 1% of the American population is in prison. And so I think that so long as the prison system still has problems, there's a really good argument for having the death penalty. But still, I think that it's excessive and it's unnecessary and that there are other ways to treat and punish prisoners.
It is an interesting topic because you have many different angles that are in favor or against the death penalty. For example, you have religious views where you say that you should not take a life of another person no matter what. Or you have other views that say that the death penalty is simply wrong and that you can't right a wrong with another wrong.
Right, exactly.
So it kind of doesn't make sense. But at the same time, you do, like you say, the prisons are full of people, and it costs around, I think it's $12,000 a year per person to keep them in prison. So what do you do with all of these people that have life sentences that are going to spend the rest of their lives in jail? So it is interesting. And many countries are very, very strict with their legal system in comparison with the United States, right?
Definitely, but there is a statistic that's pretty stunning that I think among the top 20 developed nations in the world, I think only the United States is the one with the death penalty.
Exactly. And actually the ratio of people compared to the population that are in jail is much higher in the United States than in other countries.
That's true.
So it is a very questionable topic, but we want to know what you think. Do you think that the death penalty is a justifiable way to do justice? Or do you think maybe it's just wrong and we shouldn't have it anymore?
What is capital punishment? Capital punishment is also called the death penalty. It is a punishment where a person is put to death by the government because of a very serious crime. These crimes are usually things like killing another person. Not all countries use capital punishment. Some countries think it is wrong. Other countries still use it today. Long ago, many places in the world used the death penalty. People were killed in different ways, sometimes in public. But today, many countries have stopped this punishment. They think there are better ways to punish someone who does something very bad. In countries that still use capital punishment, there are special laws. These laws say when it can happen and who decides. Usually, a judge and a jury must agree. The process takes a long time. Sometimes, it takes many years. Some people agree with capital punishment. They think it stops others from doing bad things. Some people do not agree with it. They think it is not fair and should not be used. This is why people talk a lot about this topic. Capital punishment is a very serious subject. In this lesson, we will learn more about what people think, how it is used in different countries, and why some people want to stop it. How capital punishment is used in different countries. Capital punishment is not the same in every country. Some countries use it often. Some countries use it only sometimes. And some countries do not use it at all. The rules are different in each place, and the reasons for using capital punishment can also be different. In some countries, the death penalty is still legal and active. This means the government can give someone this punishment if they commit a very serious crime. These crimes are usually murder or killing another person, but in some places, people can get the death penalty for other crimes too, like drug trafficking or spying. In these countries, capital punishment is part of the law. The courts, judges, and lawyers follow the legal steps to decide if the person will get this punishment. There are other countries where capital punishment is still legal, but it is not used anymore. It is like a law that still exists, but the government does not use it in real life. These countries may keep the law, but they often give people a different punishment, like prison for life. Sometimes, the government is thinking about ending capital punishment, but the process to change the law is slow. Some countries have already ended capital punishment completely. This is called abolishing the death penalty. In these countries, the government decided that this kind of punishment should not be used anymore. They believe there are better ways to punish people, like putting them in prison. They also believe every person has the right to live, even if they did something terrible. These countries think that killing someone, even for punishment, is not right. Even in countries where capital punishment still exists, it is not easy to use. The legal process is very long. After a person is given the death sentence, they can ask for another trial or try to change the decision. This can take many years. During this time, the person usually stays in a special part of the prison called death row. Sometimes, people stay there for 10 years, 20 years, or even longer. The method of capital punishment also changes from country to country. Some countries use a machine called the electric chair. Others use a shot with strong medicine, which makes the person sleep and then stop breathing. In some places, people are killed by hanging or by shooting. These methods are very serious, and each country decides what they use. Some countries are changing their ideas, even if they used capital punishment in the past. They are now thinking more about human rights, justice, and fairness. They are asking questions like, what if the wrong person is punished? What if there is a mistake? These questions are important, and many people are talking about them around the world. Learning how different countries use capital punishment helps us understand that this is a global issue. Some people think it is necessary to keep society safe. Others think it is too dangerous and unfair. In the next part, we will look at the arguments of people who support capital punishment and why they think it's needed. Why do some people support capital punishment? Some people think that capital punishment is important. They believe that in some situations, it is the right thing to do. For these people, the death penalty is not only a punishment, but also a way to protect society and make it better. Let's look at the reasons why some people support capital punishment and believe it should stay as part of the law. One common reason is the idea of justice. Some people believe that if someone takes another person's life, they should also lose their own life. They think this is fair. They say that the punishment should match the crime. If someone kills, then they should be punished in the strongest way. This way, the family of the victim feels that something has been done. For these families, the death penalty brings a sense of justice. It may help them feel that the person who caused pain and loss is not free anymore. Another reason is to stop other people from doing the same thing. Some people believe that capital punishment is a warning. If people know they could be put to death for a crime, they may not do it. This is called deterrence. Supporters say that if the punishment is strong, people will be too afraid to break the law. They believe this can help keep the country safe. They think it helps stop future crimes before they happen. Some people also believe that capital punishment saves money and time. They say that if a person is put in prison for life, the government has to pay for food, health care, and a place to live for many years. But if that person is given the death penalty, they are not in prison for their whole life. Supporters believe this can reduce the cost for the government. However, not everyone agrees with this idea, because the legal process for capital punishment is often very long and expensive. Supporters also say that some people are very dangerous and cannot change. They believe that some criminals will always hurt others. Even in prison, they may fight or kill again. These people think the death penalty is the only way to stop these dangerous people forever. They believe it is a way to protect society and prevent more pain. In some places, religion or culture also plays a role. Some religious beliefs or cultural traditions support strong punishment for serious crimes. They say that it is part of their law or history. They may believe that justice must be done in the way their religion or culture teaches. People who support capital punishment often feel very strongly. They do not want to see violent people live freely or even stay alive in prison. They want laws to be strong, and they believe that fear of punishment can help people follow the law. For them, capital punishment is not about revenge. It is about protecting others and keeping order in society. Even though these reasons are important for some people, others do not agree with them. In the next part, we will learn about the people who are against capital punishment and the reasons why they want it to end. Why do some people oppose capital punishment? While some people support capital punishment, many others believe it is wrong. These people are against it. They think that the death penalty should not be used at all. They believe there are better ways to punish someone, and that killing, even as punishment, is not the right answer. Let's look at the reasons why some people want to end capital punishment. One of the most serious concerns is the possibility of a mistake. People who are against capital punishment often ask, what if the wrong person is punished? Sometimes innocent people are arrested and sent to prison for crimes they did not do. Even with police, lawyers, and judges, mistakes can happen. If a person is put in prison by mistake, the government can fix it by letting them go free. But if a person is executed by mistake, nothing can be done. That life is lost forever. This is why many people believe the risk is too high. Another reason people oppose the death penalty is because they believe all human life is valuable. They think that even people who have done very bad things should not be killed. They believe that life in prison is a strong enough punishment. They say that taking someone's life, even by law, is still wrong. It does not teach people to be better. It only repeats the violence. They ask, how can killing a person be the answer to killing? Some people say that the death penalty does not stop crime. They believe it is not a good way to prevent people from doing bad things. In some countries where capital punishment is still used, crime is still a big problem. These people say that the fear of death does not always change someone's actions. They believe it is more important to help people, educate them, and fix problems in society, instead of using death as punishment. Many people also believe that the death penalty is not fair. They say that some people are more likely to get the death sentence because of their race, their money, or their background. In some places, poor people who cannot pay for a good lawyer may be punished more often. This creates unfairness. Some people believe that the legal system should be equal for everyone, and that capital punishment makes it more unfair. Another reason people are against capital punishment is because it causes more pain. It can hurt not only the person who is being punished, but also their family. Just like the family of the victim suffers, the family of the person who is executed also suffers. They lose someone they love, and they must live with that pain. People who oppose the death penalty believe that more pain is not the answer to pain. In many countries, people are talking more about human rights. They believe that every person has the right to live, even if they have done something very wrong. Some human rights groups say that capital punishment is cruel and inhumane. They believe it is time for the world to move forward and find kinder ways to deal with crime. Some people who were once in favor of capital punishment have changed their minds. After learning about the risks, the unfairness, and the pain it causes, they now believe it is better to use life in prison instead. They want a justice system that gives people time to change and also protects society without using death. Being against capital punishment does not mean a person thinks crime is okay. People who are against it still want justice. They still believe people who break the law should be punished. But they believe that killing should never be the answer. They believe there are more peaceful and fair ways to make the world safer. How capital punishment is discussed in society and the media. Capital punishment is not just a legal issue. It is also a social issue. Around the world, people talk about it in many places. On the news, in classrooms, in families, in politics, and online. It is a subject that often brings strong emotions because it is connected to life, death, justice, and fairness. Some people agree with it, some people are against it, and many others are still trying to understand what they believe. These conversations are important because they help people think, learn, and decide what kind of society they want to live in. In schools and universities, capital punishment is often part of the discussion in classes about law, ethics, government, and human rights. Students are asked to think about both sides of the issue. They may read stories about real cases where someone received the death penalty. They may talk about what is fair and what is cruel. Teachers do not always give answers. Instead, they help students ask big questions. Should a country have the power to take a life? Can a punishment teach people a lesson? What should we do when someone breaks the law in a very serious way? In the media, capital punishment is often shown in news reports, documentaries, films, and even TV shows. Sometimes, the media shows a real case where someone is sentenced to death. People watch closely and form their own opinions. They might feel angry, sad, or confused. Some news stories show victims' families asking for justice. Other stories show people who say the person did not receive a fair trial. The media can help people learn, but it can also make people feel emotional and take sides quickly. Movies and TV series sometimes show fictional stories about crime and punishment. In some of these stories, the person who is punished is clearly guilty. In others, there is a mystery. The audience may not know the full truth until the end. These stories help people explore their feelings about justice. They make people think about right and wrong, law and forgiveness, punishment and second chances. These are not easy ideas, but they are part of the conversation. Capital punishment is also a political issue. In many countries, politicians talk about it during elections or when new laws are discussed. Some politicians say they support the death penalty because they want to appear strong on crime. They want people to feel safe. Others say they want to end the death penalty because they care about fairness, justice, or human rights. When new leaders are chosen, they may change the laws about capital punishment. This shows how much power governments have and how important it is for people to vote and be part of the system. Sometimes, the public speaks loudly about this issue. People may hold signs in the streets. They may walk in a group called a protest. Some protests are against the death penalty. People shout, "Stop capital punishment." They ask for the law to be changed. Other groups may support it. They say, "We need justice." Both groups want to be heard. In some cases, these voices make a real difference. Lawmakers and judges may listen and think again about the punishment. The internet is another place where people share ideas. On social media, people from different countries can talk to each other. They write posts, share news, and tell stories. Sometimes people argue. Other times they listen and learn. Some people share facts and history. Others share their personal stories. Maybe they lost a loved one to crime, or maybe they know someone who was given the death penalty. These stories help make the issue more human. It is not just about laws. It's about real people. Even religion and culture play a role in the conversation. In some religious communities, capital punishment is seen as a necessary punishment. In others, it is seen as something that should never happen. People often look to their faith for guidance, asking, "What does my religion say about life and justice?" These beliefs help shape the way people think, vote, and talk. The conversation about capital punishment will likely continue for a long time. As societies grow and change, people will keep asking big questions. Should we punish by killing? Can people change? How do we balance safety, fairness, and forgiveness? In the final part of this topic, we will think about the future. What might happen to capital punishment in the years to come? Will more countries end it? Will new laws be made? Let's explore these ideas next. The future of capital punishment. Capital punishment has been part of human history for a very long time. In the past, it was common in many places. People believed it was the best way to punish serious crimes. But as time has passed, ideas have started to change. Today, many people, governments, and groups are thinking deeply about what should happen next. The future of capital punishment is uncertain, but it is also full of possibilities. One important thing that may shape the future is education. As more people learn about justice, human rights, and the risk of mistakes, their opinions begin to grow and change. Schools, books, movies, and news help people see the problem from many sides. A young person in school today might become a leader, a judge, or a teacher in the future. What they learn now will help them make decisions later. As education spreads, it becomes harder to accept ideas that cause harm or unfairness. Education may help more people support justice that is not violent. Another thing that may change the future is technology. In the past, it was hard to find out the truth about a crime. Now, there are better ways to find evidence, like cameras, DNA tests, and digital records. These tools can help stop innocent people from being punished, but they also show us that many mistakes happened in the past. In some countries, people were put to death before this technology was available. When people learn this, they start to ask difficult questions. How many people were punished unfairly? Can we still trust the system? These questions may push governments to review old cases and change future rules. Laws are also changing in many parts of the world. In some countries, capital punishment has already ended. In others, it is being used less and less. Some governments are slowly removing it from their legal system. They are choosing life in prison instead of death. They believe this is still a serious punishment, but it gives people time to change. It also avoids the risk of killing someone by mistake. More countries are talking to each other about human rights and working together to build safer, fairer justice systems. People's feelings and beliefs play a big role in the future too. Some people believe in second chances. They think that people can grow and learn from their mistakes, even after terrible crimes. These people want a justice system that focuses not just on punishment, but also on healing. They ask, can we build a world where people learn from their wrong choices? Can we support victims without using violence? These ideas are becoming more popular, especially among younger generations who want to build a kinder and more equal society. International groups and organizations are also part of the conversation. Some groups work to end capital punishment around the world. They speak to leaders, write reports, and help people understand the risks and problems of using the death penalty. These groups bring people from many countries together to learn, share, and support each other. They believe that working together is the key to creating change. Of course, the future will not be the same everywhere. In some countries, capital punishment may continue for a long time. People in these places may feel that it is needed for safety or tradition. Changing laws and minds can take many years. But even in these places, small changes can begin. One person may speak out. One new law may be passed. One case may change people's hearts. And little by little, the future begins to shift. The future of capital punishment will also depend on how societies deal with crime in general. If more countries focus on stopping crime before it happens by helping families, improving education, and supporting mental health, then fewer people may end up in prison. If we fix the problems that lead to crime, we may not need such extreme punishments. This is called prevention, and many experts believe it is the best way to make the world safer. In the end, the future of capital punishment is not just about law or crime. It is about values. It is about what kind of world we want to create. Do we want a world where justice is strong but also fair? A world where people are punished but also given a chance to change? A world that protects both safety and human dignity? These are not easy questions, but they are important ones. Capital punishment will continue to be a topic of discussion in the years ahead. People will agree, disagree, and keep searching for answers. And that is part of being human. Asking questions, learning, and trying to make things better.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word. The punishment of death.
Death penalty.
The act of changing the direction or use of something.
Diversion.
The amount of time to keep criminals in jail.
Prison sentence.
Expecting or requiring people to obey rules or laws.
Authoritarian.
Underage criminals.
Juvenile offender.
An issue that causes disagreement between people and causes them to separate into different groups.
Divisive topic.
Very strict and severe.
Draconian.
A person who continues to commit crimes even after being caught and punished.
Recidivist.
An unjust legal decision.
Miscarriage of justice.
To teach a criminal in prison to live a normal and productive life.
Rehabilitate.
Punishment of death.
Capital punishment.
To make something up to trick people.
Fabricate.
Something that prevents people from doing something.
Deterrent.
To move resources from one thing to another.
Divert.
Someone who rules with absolute power.
Dictator.
Let's try that faster. To make something up to trick people.
Fabricate.
Very strict and severe.
Draconian.
An unjust legal decision.
Miscarriage of justice.
Underage criminals.
Juvenile offender.
The punishment of death.
Death penalty.
The amount of time to keep criminals in jail.
Prison sentence.
Someone who rules with absolute power.
Dictator.
An issue that causes disagreement between people and causes them to separate into different groups.
Divisive topic.
Expecting or requiring people to obey rules or laws.
Authoritarian.
Punishment of death.
Capital punishment.
The act of changing the direction or use of something.
Diversion.
To teach a criminal in prison to live a normal and productive life.
Rehabilitate.
Something that prevents people from doing something.
Deterrent.
To move resources from one thing to another.
Divert.
A person who continues to commit crimes even after being caught and punished.
Recidivist.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Death penalty. Many religious groups object to the death penalty. Death penalty. The death penalty is one of the most divisive topics in America. Death penalty. Statistics about the effectiveness of the death penalty in crime deterrence are often conflicting. Draconian. Some small American towns are enacting draconian laws against dancing. Draconian. The word draconian comes from an ancient Greek lawyer under whom small offenses had heavy punishments. Draconian. In places with draconian laws, there may be law and order, but there is no personal freedom. Fabricate. The boy fabricated the entire story. There was no wolf at all. Fabricate. The factory can fabricate almost any textile. Fabricate. New studies have found that even DNA evidence can be easily fabricated. Deterrent. Bike locks are good theft deterrents. Deterrent. Many studies have proven that long jail sentences are not an effective crime deterrent. Deterrent. When traveling in these mountains, we recommend carrying a long stick to deter mountain lion attacks. Divert. The government will divert future revenue into paying off the national debt. Divert. Beaver dams can divert an entire river. Divert. One thief diverted the victim's attention while the other thief stole his wallet.